Hi everyone, I'm Will, IT guy from the forums, and I'm going to show you how I clean the paintwork on my car and use a G220 polisher with a various range of polishes to try to get some paint defects out of our bonnet. Now before I start, it's quite difficult, but I'm going to try to show you what kind of condition the paint's in. It's quite difficult trying to find the right little bit of light for it, but I'm not sure whether you can see. Come out the way. There you go. I don't know whether that's clear enough. But what I've got here is I've got an LED spotlight just on my light up there. Look, rechargeable one, and that helps me try to gauge when I'm doing this what kind of condition the paint's in. But I'm trying to see if I can get it in shot here for you, just so you can see what kind of swirls there are. It's quite tricky though. Don't know whether I can. It's hard to say, but I'll try and take some stills and cut them in so you can see what kind of thing we're working with. Okay, I think this is probably a better way of showing you. I don't know if you can see those specifically there. Just try and get it to focus. Yeah, there you go. You can see them glinting. So first of all, the first step is to use some clay. I use normal meguiars clay and some quick detailer on the section of bonnet which I'm gonna clean, because what we need to do is make sure that there's loads of surface contaminants on there. We need to get all of those off, but I need to warm this clay up, and as it's not very warm today, this might take a little bit of time, so just bear with me a second and I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, so here we are with the car. You can see I've just masked off a section of bonnet, and this is the side that we're going to be working on, just in this area here. I've got the clay now so it's nice and warm. You can see there that there's no real contaminants on there, just a tiny bit of dirt which has come off my fingers while I've been working it. You can feel it's quite tacky now, and that's when it's about right to use. Now I'm going to use some quick detailer. This is just some meguiars Ultimate Detailer. It makes me look like a meguiars fanboy, but I just use the stuff that's easy to get hold of. Get all this stuff from Halfords, it's not a problem. So make sure you spray the bonnet with some quick detailer. Spray the clay as well, and then clay is so easy to use because you literally just move it over the paintwork, and as you do it you'll feel that it feels kind of rough and grating to start with, and what you're looking for is that feeling to go and for it literally just to glide across the surface. So you can see that I'm just slowly working it. You don't need to do it in sort of swirls or any particular order. I tend to do it back and forth like this because it it doesn't really matter, but you know you're going to be polishing anyway, so it's not overly critical, but this saves you having to polish off all of those impurities which are on there, and you'll see in a minute when I show you the clay how many there really are. So you just literally just keep working it. Just going to go down to the end of the bonnet here, just out of shot. Just bear with me. Just do that. I can start to hear now. The only real noise I can hear coming from this now is just the water moving around, so that's feeling really nice. A little bit more up the top here. I think we're about there, so if we have a look at the clay in a second. Right, let's have a look at that clay. You see that now? You see that kind of brown on there? That's all of the little bits of tar and fly and everything else which has gone on there over the well, I can't remember when I last did this on this one, so it must be a good few months. Right, I'll get this dried down, so let me just pop this clay down. So just using a microfiber, just clean it down and get it reasonably well dried off. Okay, we're nearly there. It's a little bit damp in here today, so it's going to take a few minutes to get that done. Okay, right, now let me show you the range of polishes. Okay, so now we're getting onto the polishing side. So, first things first, I'm going to be using a 6-inch Velcro pad, so you can see Velcro on the back. I've got 3 different types of pad here. There's loads available, cleanyourcar.co.uk or wherever. But to show you the kind of difference to these, this one here, this is the hard pad. If I push my thumb into it, you can see how much of a dent that leaves behind. Medium pad, do the same. Soft pad, so you get the idea. Now those are the pads. What you need to then think of is the polishes, and I tend to use menzerna polishes, partly because they're a diminishing polish, which means that the more you polish with them, the particles inside which do the cutting just kind of diminish away. They just kind of go into dust. So it's quite hard with these to overdo it with burnout with your polisher on the paint. So I tend to prefer these just because I'm an amateur, and you know I know enough to be able to get my car to look good, but I need to make sure I'm using something fairly safe, and these are fairly safe. Now the way that these are, if you look at the back of these bottles, you'll see on here, you can see that, just put these in the right order. So starting from the right hand side, we've got a very low cut. This one in the middle here, if you can see that, is a medium cut, and then you've got a high cut. So depending on how much you know about the paint and the lacquer, and how thick it is, and depending on how much work you think there is to do on the paintwork, you use a combination of one of these and one of these. So you use a pad and a polish which is appropriate. Now you go through it in stages. You don't just use one and then it's done. I tend to prefer a kind of gentle approach because I don't have a paint gauge, so I don't know how much lacquer's on my car to work with. So what I tend to do is I tend to forget the heavy cut. I've only ever used that when I was painting myself a classic Mini and needed to cut some of the 2-pack paint back to get a shine on it. So I used some of that with that pad. Can you tell? Because it's bright red. It stained it. So I'm not going to use that today because I've no idea quite how much clear coat there is on the car. I tend to start, if I'm going to do swirls, I tend to leave the fine one because that tends to give you that showroom finish at the end. I tend to go for the middle one on a soft pad to start with, because that kind of gives you a fairly gentle cut, but it is still a cut. So you might find you have to do that 2 or 3 times to get rid of some of the swirls. If you've got a deeper scratch, you might need to use say the middle pad, but today I'm going to start with a medium polish on a fine pad. For any of you who haven't seen one of the meguiars G220 polishes, here it is. Let's open this up and I'll show you how it goes together. So UK model, doesn't need a transformer or anything like that, they used to. So just looks like an angle grinder, if you've ever had one of those. So use your kind of head, handle which mounts on the back like that, again can be adjusted to how you prefer, a couple of screws for that. This is your Velcro backing plate, and again just stick it straight on, screw it on, and then it's ready to go with your pad. So I'll just do all of that and then I'll be back with you. Okay, right, we're all assembled up, so where's my soft pad? So with this, you can see on the back of the pad, you just got to try to get that as central as you can on it, otherwise it gets a bit awkward. Right, now the other thing I'll show you on here is I've drawn a line on the backing pad. You can see that line there, so that's only one line on it, and you see how it spins round. Right, I'll come on to that in a moment. So I'm just going to move the camera back over to the car, and then I'll start to talk to you about how I prep and then how we polish. Okay, so on to the polishing then. It's probably fair to say that I learnt everything I know about polishing from one of my best friends, Lee Crowden, who had a polisher before me, spent an extortionate amount of time on Detailing World, gleaned a load of knowledge, and took him months to perfect. I then bought a polisher and said to him, how do I do it? And he came around and showed me in about 10 minutes, like I'm going to do in this video. So everything I know has come from that. I'm not saying it's the right way, the best way, it's the way that I do it, and it gives me results. So hopefully it should be helpful to you. So that's the kind of disclaimers out of the way. If you buy one of these, burn through your polish and everything, don't talk to me. I'm just showing you what I do, and I'm showing you on my car. So there you are. So anyway, all of that out of the way. So I've got the polisher here. I'm just going to lay this out on the bonnet. Now, in terms of prepping the pad, obviously when you're using a pad that's been washed and it's kind of fresh, there's nothing on it at all, you need to put a bit of polish on there to get it going. But before we do that, just for the first time, it's useful just to spray a little bit of quick detailer on. Again, just working in a little bit, just gives the pad a little bit of moisture, so it isn't too dry when it goes on your paint. And then for the first time only, put 4 dabs of the polish onto the pad, and then with your finger just work these lightly just into the surface of the pad. Doesn't have to be perfect or anything, just work them in a little like that. Okay. Now on the back of the polisher there's a speed control, and you see that there. And first of all, you set it to 2. Now, before you do anything with the power, I'll just check it is on. Yeah, it is. Before you do anything with the power, with the polish that you've got, and again, I'm just going to put this cable over my shoulder so it doesn't drag across the paintwork. With the polish that you've got, just smear it over the paintwork without the machine running at all, just like that. Okay, I'm not going to try and do the whole of this with this polish. It'll probably require me to put some more on for the bottom section. So I'm just going to put it on the top there like that. Okay, and then with it on speed number 2, you start it up, and you remember I showed you that line? That line, you're trying to get that to go round twice every second. That's the kind of speed, and that line will go round quicker or slower depending on how hard you press on the polisher. So just to start with, I'm pressing very, very lightly. I can see the pad spinning round with the line, and I'm just working the polish in. So all this is doing is just moving the polish on the paintwork and just getting it evenly spread across before we start polishing. This isn't cutting anything off the paintwork at this speed. We're just working it in nice and slowly, and just alternating in strokes. Don't go round in circles, because that's what we're trying to get rid of. Okay, so that's the first stage done. Second stage, set it to number 4 on the back, and it goes up to 6, by the way. So set it to 4 on the back. Now this is where it's starting to warm the paintwork up. It's not going to do much cutting at this, but it's starting to warm the paintwork up. And again, watch for the line and make sure it's twice per second going round. Okay, so the paintwork's starting to get a bit warm now, which is good. To be honest, the best time to do this is outside, when the car is outside and it's hot in the summer and it's, you know, the paintwork's nice and supple, because that helps it cut and it makes it work really well. So on the back now, go on to speed 6. This is flat out for the polisher, and this is where you have to press quite a lot harder to make sure that you've only got 2 spins of that line per second on the head, and this is what does the cutting. And if I show you now what it looks like in detail, so if you can see that there, that's how the polish is sitting on there at the moment, and I'll show you how it looks when I've just done this section here. Right, so, okay. As you can see, a bit slower this time. Again, just watching the speed of the head, making sure that line's trying to move about twice a second. If it moves too slowly, you're putting too much pressure on, so you lift off. And if it's going too quickly, you need to put more on. More pressure, that is. Okay, just one more up and down and then I'll show you. Okay, so let's just pop the polisher down. I'll just grab this out here. Right, so now hopefully you can see that that polish looks a little bit different. It's really gone into a bit of a haze. So what I'll do now, using a different microfiber, so this isn't the one that I used with the clay and the quick detailer earlier. I'm just going to just wipe this polish off. Okay, so let's just do that. And this is where you start to see whether it's worked or not. Which, surprise, surprise, it has. Okay, so if I just grab the camera and I'll show you what that looks like now. So, here we are. This is the section which we've done. And hopefully, if I can try and get out of the way a little bit, you can hopefully see, if I can get it to focus, that there are no swirls. You can see there's a very occasional, like just there's a little tiny mark, that's a bit of a stone chip. And if I come down, can you see the bit which I haven't done? So, again, looking down here, can you see the swirls around that particular light source? Just there, see them glinting around it. If I go up, none there. And that's what we're looking for. Now, I can see with the naked eye, I can see that I probably wouldn't go over this with the same polish again, but I'd probably use some of that lighter polish now, maybe on a medium pad, and that would just finish this off nicely. I think the thing which is most astounding when you look at it is the difference generally overall on the paintwork, and it's difficult again to show you with a camera which refuses to focus, but effectively it's quite remarkable when you see in daylight exactly what the difference looks like on the paintwork. It's just so much brighter, so much. You can even see in that light there, look, as I move from the bottom up to the top, you can see, oh, there's a bit of a scratch there. Again, that might need a little bit more work, but you can start to get the real sense of what you can achieve with the polisher. And it's just practice. You just have to do sections at a time, make sure you don't overdo it, and just go around your car bit by bit, and hopefully that'll help you. If you need any more advice or anything, just feel free to give me a shout. I can usually try to answer any questions if you got them. If not, detailing world's probably your best bet. But there you are. One bit which just occurred to me actually was I didn't tell you how to reload the pad once you've done it for the first time. So what I tend to do is I don't put any quick detailer on again, and I just put 2 dots on, and again spread it into the pad a little bit, but because the pad's already loaded and it has a little bit of polish and a little bit of quick detailer from before, this is all I tend to do now. So on this bottom section here, I'm ready to go. Clearly, once you've polished it like that, you're going to need to seal it. So some kind of wax or something similar. My current favourite is this one, which is G3 Super Gloss Paste Wax. I find this, it kind of goes on with a consistency like butter actually. Comes off really well as well, and it's very quick to use and actually lasts for a good little while. So I really like that, but just don't forget to put it on after you've done your polishing, because otherwise it's just completely unprotected. But remember, once you've used a polisher, the paint should be in really good order, so it's all about sealing then. Don't go and use some, you know, auto glim polish or anything like that. You don't need it. As soon as you've used a polisher, you've done all of the hard work. It's then just about sealing it and making sure you keep it nice.